Sharing breast milk online would have raised many safety and ethical concerns a few years ago. There were plenty of studies to highlight that breast milk purchased online is often contaminated. But then along came childbirth educator and doula Maria Armstrong and midwife Shell Walker Luttrell, and they created Eats on Feet. Eats on Feet is a booming platform for safe breast milk sharing, but more importantly, Maria and Shell created a rigorous and comprehensive set of guidelines that turned the Wild West of online breast milk sharing into a truly safe infant feeding option. So much so that their guidelines are now considered by policymakers too. You can check out everything on their website in the link below and join their growing network of donors and recipients. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, press the bell for notifications, and now enjoy the talk. I am here today with Shell Walker Luttrell and Maria Armstrong. Thank you for joining me.
Our pleasure.
Hi, Eva.
The very first question that comes to everybody's mind when talking about sharing breast milk, and especially sharing breast milk online, is it safe? And you have done a very detailed, extensive research involving other medical professionals that resulted in this rigorous, thorough documentation and guidelines about what are the necessary perimeters for a safe way to share breast milk. And you summarized it on this website that is called Resource for the Informed Sharing of Human Milk. It's a very essential collection of guidelines. I must say, it's absolutely amazing. And I wanted to ask you, what was your approach when you started this, and what was the goal?
Well, the resource guide as it stands as a document online came out of what was originally just a simple FAQ, just a simple frequently asked questions that was guided by our network users. So families looking for breast milk, they had some questions. And so we answered them with the FAQ. And then as we got into that, we became aware of some of the broader, larger, more important questions. And we got into the research, into the material, and it just kept going and going and going. And Maria and I just dug in and we created the resource as it stands. And then the 4 pillars of safe breast milk sharing came from that. So we went from a simple FAQ that then expanded into a very large and thorough document. Once we had that, then the question was, well, this is a lot of information. How do we condense this, make it really accessible to our users so that they have something simple that they can refer to? Because asking a parent who is, for example, has just had a baby, is low on sleep, might be frazzled, is trying to figure out how to feed their baby, asking them to read and digest that entire document was just too much. And so we realized that. So I sat down with all of the information and thought, okay, what are these documents essentially saying? And from there, we created the 4 pillars of safe milk sharing.
And on the website as well, I mean, the 4 pillars is an excellent summary for that. But what I really liked about the website as well, that it's so structured. You can easily find the specific information you're looking for without having to read through everything. You're turning this wild west of online milk sharing into a truly safe option.
It sure felt like that to us.
It sure did. And we are, in constant contact with people with medical backgrounds and milk sharing or breast milk backgrounds who are
scientific backgrounds.
Yeah, who scrutinize the documents on a regular basis. It is constantly maintained and updated as well with the latest information. And so we try and just stay on top of all those things and keep it, to keep milk sharing safe.
Yeah. Do you receive any support or any recognition from public health sector?
Not really. Initially, we didn't receive any support at all. And in fact, that got quite a bit of pushback from the United States government, the Canadian government, admins of our own network, and other infant feeding organizations. The pushback and negativity was really extreme. And in the early days, it caused our network to actually fall apart. And but Maria and I were so committed to the information that we just kept plugging through. So what happened at one point is Eats on Feets, as the Facebook pages, as that kind of exploded, I was going to bed one night and I had just read an article about herpes and breastfeeding. And as a midwife, I, of course, am very involved with newborn health. And the stress and intensity, the thought of a baby being harmed by sharing breast milk willy-nilly, it just frightened and terrified me. I couldn't sleep all night. And I woke up, I called Maria instantly. I was like, oh my gosh, we need to create some sort of safety parameters for this. I mean, we have people all over the planet now using our pages to exchange breast milk, and we're not even saying anything about hand washing, equipment washing, the safety at all. We have to do something. So that really put a fire in our hearts, so to speak.
And informed choice needed to be really informed choice, and easily
exactly.
accessible. And yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, a really big deal. So fast forward, Maria and I just kept going with it. We're like, well, this is really important stuff. So whether our network, in terms of being a space to provide a place for people to share human milk, or whether we're just creating the safety documents, in either event, we need to keep going with this and get the information out there. So fast forward through all of that turmoil, and our network managed to survive. The information, the safety guidelines became more organized. The 4 pillars were born. And after that, then we started receiving some support, or at least some acknowledgement, and several organizations on national levels have used the document to create their own policy to support human milk sharing, which I think is a gigantic win.
It's huge. Yeah, that is actually what I would say is the win.
Absolutely.
One of the fundamentals about breast milk sharing is that it has to remain a donation, a form of donation for ethical and health considerations. And you make a very strong case in one of your articles about this. Why is it essential to keep it as a donation?
Maria, I think you authored the most recent blog on that, so I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, the main issues when there is any monetary or other bargaining items involved in milk sharing is that it puts a price on breast milk, right? And you can then alter the breast milk to make it go farther and get a better price. And so the milk could not be human at all. The milk could be cut with other liquids. It could come from multiple donors, and it would be really hard to to find a source, or it's just hard to know what people are doing with the milk to get more money. Somebody on like government assistance may decide to sell their own milk and get government formula for their own baby. Things like that, can happen. And then there's a study that ironically has been used to discredit milk sharing because it shows that purchased human milk actually contains higher levels of bacterial contamination. But the study is rather flawed, and there's a lot of reasons why that happened. And it has nothing to do with milk sharing because that milk was purchased. So those are the main, few issues that that we can think of, and that we hear from that has happened to people, why there's absolutely no money involved on our network, on our on offers and requests. We remove those posts, we ask
Mhm.
people to rewrite them, and repeat offenders are just generally blocked and banned from our network.
Do you come across many of these cases, or there's general understanding within the network that it's not the way to do this?
Often enough. I mean, I still remove posts, and sometimes people regularly. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and because it's a changing base, of community members, right? There's people are in and out of their breastfeeding, chest feeding years, and so there's a whole new group of people at any time. So yeah, so that'll keep being something that we always need to moderate and manage our spaces for. That's just,
Yes.
and that's the main role of our admins and our page moderators or group moderators. It's our main role is to keep the exchanges and the posts be within our guidelines that are very clearly posted in our groups and on our pages. I wanted to add a comment on the topic of issues that we have run into, because I want our families to know that we see them and that we hear them when things happen to them. Aside from people maybe not showing up for donations at times, or babies not liking the milk, or the shipping scams that I mentioned, we also have had a few situations where people have asked for milk donations only to then sell the milk elsewhere. As Shell said, the milk sharing community at large keeps an eye out for each other, and generally people let us know when these types of things occur. But I wanted to convey that we take these situations seriously. People generally send us screenshots of these incidents, and then we take action and remove someone. Sometimes we call them out by name too, and it's just heartbreaking. I can only imagine how it must feel to donate a few hundred ounces to someone only to discover that your milk was sold to a stranger. It's awful to fall prey to a scam like that. And it does also really bring home how important it is, again, to get to know each other a little bit and not just hand off milk to somebody without the proper screening. And lastly, I wanted to thank all our volunteers who run their chapters, who donate their time, and who share their passion. Eats on Feeds really would not function without them. It is a labor of love, and so thank you, everyone.
Shell, you already mentioned these 4 pillars of safe breast milk sharing. The listeners might know that all of this breast milk sharing is based on the individual relationship between the donors and the recipients. So it is their relationship that needs guidelines to make sure that everything happens in a safe and ethical manner. Could you walk us through quickly what are those 4 pillars?
Sure. The first pillar is informed choice. And that's basically families understanding the risks and benefits of all infant and child feeding methods, so that they can make an educated decision about what to feed their baby. I mean, so this is pretty basic. And then next, the most important thing is knowing thy source, is what we call it. So, and that's important regardless of what you're feeding the baby. Just because, as we know, it says formula doesn't mean we can rest safe and assured that what we're giving our baby is a safe product. So we need to apply understanding the source to any method, any product that we're feeding the baby, including human breast milk. And knowing thy source also means understanding the donor in terms of human milk. So, what is important to the families? What is important to the baby? And this information needs to be shared between the recipient and the donors. If there's medical considerations, dietary considerations, those need to be shared with each other. The next is donor screening. And that's simple blood work. Depending on how old the donor baby is, the pregnancy blood work may or may not be viable and useful. Other screening lab work might be necessary. Updated lab work might be necessary. Also communicating about lifestyle and habits. And then the basic blood screening guidelines are to screen for HIV 1 and 2, HTLV 1 and 2, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, syphilis, and rubella. Most of those are within the pregnancy panel. The HTLV 1 and 2 usually isn't in the United States. And the next is safe handling. Yeah, that basically addresses cleanliness. Wash your hands before and after, wash the equipment, sterilize the equipment that needs to be sterilized, and properly handle, store, and transport the milk. And then home pasteurization as an option. We try to be very clear that home pasteurization is an option. It's not a necessity. So that's heat treating the milk to address infectious pathogens. And then informed choice of raw milk when all donor criteria are met. So if a recipient is receiving donor milk from someone they know, and we have up-to-date lab work, and we are comfortable and confident with their lifestyle, then parents should be able to choose raw human milk if they desire. And that's it. That's the basics. Informed choice, donor screening, safe handling, and home pasteurization.
Yeah. And that's pretty much there for all the participants for the donors and recipients to read through, know exactly all the details, make their decision. And in that sense, the organization offers the guidelines, offers the platform where they can meet. And these are the two main tasks, if I understand correctly. You don't take any responsibility for the exchanges and the relationships themselves.
Yes, that's correct. Our primary task is to provide the space and to share our knowledge of safe milk sharing practices.
And as you mentioned, Maria, also to moderate that those exchanges are actually following these guidelines.
Yes, within our network, yes.
Yes, within your network. You're also very clear that you're not mediating between the parties if any misunderstandings occur, and that you're not liable for the outcomes of these exchanges, which is fair enough, I think, especially for all the guidelines that you're providing and how you inform that you have to make your own informed decision in this exchange. Should any issues occur, is there any best practices or guidelines in place to help the participants to get through it? Is there anywhere they can turn to?
Well, first of all, the network as a whole, and Maria and I as influencers of the network, we truly and deeply support autonomy. And that is very important and is the fundamental groundwork of every article we publish, every guideline that we publish. It is to support agency and autonomy. So we create a space for agency and autonomy, and therefore we are not the police. We are not the milk sharing police. We are not the human police. Human interactions and relationships have been complicated since the beginning of time, which is how we've gotten to a place where, we have governments and legal branches and policing agencies. There's a reason why those things are there, and that is not our job at all. That said, we've had very few negative reported incidences on the network. The biggest complaint seems to be people not showing up for their appointments, for the exchanges. That seems to be the biggest complaint. The second biggest complaint seems to be the recipient baby not liking the taste of the donor milk. We've had a few rumored complaints of maybe somebody had to call the police because they thought they were being scammed. And we've asked for documentation about that and never received anything. So there's nothing too big going on, but if there is a problem, they can report it to the page admin. And if it's a case where somebody is practicing outside of our guidelines, or if there's a harassing situation going on, say, oh, an elder male who wants to get breast milk for weightlifting or something and is pestering one of the page users, we can block them or otherwise go through a process of investigating that situation. But in general, the milk sharing community is really tight and they do a pretty good job of supporting and protecting each other and letting us know what's up. So in terms of that type of support, it's there. They just need to report to the page admin.
Yeah, and we've had over the last decade plus maybe a couple of instances where there were in the United States, so statewide shipping scams, that people were contacted and send money and you get milk and that never happens. And so the communication within the state pages and stuff like that is very important so that we can keep track of, oh, this is actually much bigger than our own state, and we need to communicate with each other and put that out then. So sometimes in those situations we will call people out by name, which is, I mean, we try not to do that because, well, people can have the same name. So that makes it's a problem. People can change their social media accounts. So there's, as far as what we can do, it's limited, right? And so it really has to come down to people's own agency and taking charge of their own exchanges and decisions, because there's only so much that we can do. And so we don't want to create a false sense of security for them either. And we're not part of their exchanges from the get-go, from the very beginning, other than offering that space. And so it becomes impossible to be involved at a later point. We don't know what they do and what they decided. So.
And there's also some communication amongst the various networks. If we become aware of, say, a shipping scam that is happening in multiple states through our network, then we're like, well, this is a national situation, and we will contact leaders or admins of other milk sharing networks and let them know what's going on, and vice versa.
I see. How many groups are there now on the Facebook? So you have every state, and I think even within the state there are more localized groups for eats on feeds.
No, I mean, there's only one state right now that has two groups, and that is California, has northern and southern, because it's such a long, narrow state. But otherwise keeping it to country or state, and people just put in their location. So that's just our network. But there are many, many smaller local groups that allow milk sharing, or that are milk sharing specific, that you can find per region or cities or whatnot, where that are hyper local and people can connect. So there's a lot of groups like that sprung forth of our starting this. So that's been pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. That's kind of answers a little bit one of my questions, is how much more popular is it becoming, or more trusted? Did you see that improvement, or did you see that increase in the last few years?
I think so. I mean, definitely more popular, and we get a lot less, or at all. I don't even remember the last time I saw a comment of, "Oh, that's icky," or anything like that. People are much more aware of, and it's much more normalized, which has been our goal from the beginning, is to normalize milk sharing. And I think that's happening and has mostly happened.
Yeah. I think we're coming up on 13 years, Maria.
Yeah, in July.
which means that some of the little babies that first received breast milk, human milk from or through our organization are now menstruating.
Yeah.
And if they know their milk sharing story, then they will, promote that and pass it on. So, in a few years, it's gonna spider out like exponentially.
Yeah, babies who first received milk through the network will be having their own babies. So milk sharing will be a part of their entire life. There will never have been a part in their life where it wasn't happening. So that's pretty exciting.
Oh, that's very beautiful.
We can't wait.
Yeah.
We want to have that first story when it comes out.
Do you know approximately how many babies have benefited from Eats on Feeds? Maybe let's see, every year. I know it's a growing figure, but like maybe last year.
So approximately between 5 and 50,000, which is a lot. But and a lot of people looking for more information about the network are usually a little frustrated at our inability to give that information. But you have to understand that the framework for our organization is so different than anything commerce-based or service-based or nonprofit-based. Like, numbers aren't our goal. Our goal is creating space and sharing knowledge. It's not counting anything. So yeah, so we don't have a hard fast number, but our calculations say between 5,000 and 50,000 a year.
Yeah, and oftentimes we really just don't know also because a lot of people requesting milk may be offered milk privately and there may never be a comment under their request. And that actually happens a lot. Uh, and or the same way somebody's offering milk and there's nobody commenting under those offers, and yet at some point there's a comment that says this milk has been claimed, and we know there's been communication behind in private, which is what we encourage, right? It's the initial contact is public, but then take it privately.
Exactly.
Safety. So that's how we know that things are happening. We just have no idea as to how much, and I think that's great.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Do you have a favorite breast milk sharing story? Because you can read a few of them on your website. So some people do get back to you and they tell you how fantastic it was. And you can see these amazing photos where the two families actually bond through this experience or over this experience. So do you have any favorite stories?
Recent story. I mean, I guess it's one of my favorite. I had, as a doula and childbirth educator, I had a client in need of milk a few years ago, with her first baby, and this past year she had another baby, and lo and behold, managed to have extra milk. She was not only able to all of a sudden feed her own baby, but also express milk and store it. And then I had another client who was in need of milk around the same time that she had her baby, and I connected them and they took it from there, and they became friends, and yeah, they're still friends, and those things are beautiful, and knowing that those two babies are like milk siblings, as we call them, it's just wonderful. So it's a big success story for the recipient that turned donor for sure, and for the new recipient family as well, to have somebody that is able to donate to them on a recurring basis.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And so many stories of babies who were not gaining weight, were not growing, and doctors couldn't figure out how to help this baby or multiple babies. And to then see the pictures later of these big, chubby little roly-poly babies at a year, 18 months after they got on the human milk, it's just heartwarming. We just love those stories. And, families or parents who have had very serious medical complications, um, going through breast cancer during pregnancy and then treatment following, to be able to feed their babies. That's just so heartwarming. But then there's also just the normal everyday. Parents want to go out and celebrate an anniversary or a birthday and want to spend a night on the town, and so get some donor milk so the baby doesn't have to go without human milk for the night. I mean, that also makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me smile too. I can relate to that. Okay, all right. I have one more last question. Shal, this is for you actually. Did you grow an award-winning giant pumpkin yet?
Oh gosh, this is the year, Eva. This is the year. This is the year. I have the plan. I am doing it. I am doing it. I have tried so many times, but this is the year. Thank you for asking.
Check back with.
I check back on
Yeah.
that one, definitely. Well, thank you so much for both of you for your time. That was very good to hear all the details about this. It's a fantastic achievement.
Oh, thank you for all the work you're doing in the world, Eva. It's really wonderful.
Yes, thank you for having us and being interested in Eats on Feeds and milk sharing, especially. It's wonderful. Spread the word about it more.
Next week, we will be sitting down with the New Mexico Breastfeeding Task Force. It's a very active and devoted organization that offers a wide range of support for breastfeeding mothers, and they have a very definite set of strategic goals that they want to reach by 2024. Hope you will join me next Monday.